What's up, everyone? Aaron Negler here with Cheesehead TV and your Packers Daily Chat. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, namely on the East Coast. That means we're talking Packers. And thanks to everybody already jumping in the chat here, live on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're everywhere you guys want to be because we're dedicated to you, Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Obviously, talking about Matt LaFleur. I think I've seen around the internet in the last 24 hours the idea of the honeymoon period, how long it will last for LaFleur. I mean, you know, much further than Matt Patricia in Detroit to see how quickly things can turn. And I'm not talking about the stuff off the field, I'm talking about the on-field product, how things were really exciting in Detroit heading into the start of last year, turning the page, a whole new staff, new systems, etc., and then a very disappointing year. And while I don't see that exactly in the future for the Packers, it's a possibility, and you'd be silly to dismiss it as a possibility. And I just wanted to kind of jumpstart our conversation today with the idea that what happens if LaFleur, say, is in over his head and things go south quickly early on in 2019, and Gutekunst does his job and provides a bunch of talent, and it looks maybe like the Packers made a mistake with the hire, say, after the first year. Just interesting to hear how people would view that, how they respond to it. I'm sure with nothing but patience and wisdom. Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers to win a playoff game. Who are you taking? Bart Starr. I mean, if we're going to talk, fantasy, why not, right? It's not very loud. Audio fix, please. Danielle, can we help the fine people who can't seem to hear me? Nagler, you've been a better example of optimism. I try to be. Packers mock draft. Oh, yeah. Lions didn't know they were rooting for the Lions. That's a good point. Colin Cowherd doesn't like the LaFleur hiring. Well, there you go. That tells you all you need to know, that he's going to be a Super Bowl contender. Guys, I'm sorry about the volume. Not quite sure what's going on there. Could AB be worth only a mid-round pick? Well, I saw some reports today saying the local, Ed Bouchette, who covers the Steelers, saying that the team should take what they can get, even if it is a late-round pick. I'm going to be absolutely shocked if AB is anywhere other than Pittsburgh. I think a lot of this is off-season noise. I know there's been a lot of heat on both sides. I know ownership has chimed in saying he probably needs to play somewhere else, etc. He obviously put up the tweet the other day. But I'll be absolutely shocked if he's anywhere other than Pittsburgh in 2019. Aiden, signing Asamale from the Raiders. I absolutely love that idea. I know Zach Cruz threw that out there this morning. The idea that Milt Hendrickson would have been on staff when they drafted him in Baltimore. He's been in Oakland now and could possibly be a salary cut casualty. I think he would absolutely fit the bill, fit him in there at right guard, and away you go. I mean, he'd be an instant upgrade for their offensive line at a position they desperately need help at. I don't know what the numbers would be, but yes to all of that. Are you concerned about Aaron Jones' durability going forward? Talent is there, but we need him to stay healthy. I mean, Trevor, at this point, he's had three, I won't say significant injuries. He hasn't, hasn't broken anything, etc. He's had the MCL twice and had a hamstring issue there at the good stretch during camp this past summer. So those are nagging things, but those are nagging things that have kept him out of action. And at the running back spot, that mileage adds up real quick. And I know lots of people like to give McCarthy grief because he didn't play the kid as much as we would have liked on the outside, but maybe Mike was onto something. Maybe Mike knew something. Maybe Mike was not wanting to run him into the ground because of durability concerns. So, do I have concerns? Yeah. I think he'd be silly not to. Three, relatively concerning injuries in the course of like 15, 16 months. Yeah, that's cause for concern. And that's why I think they probably will look to, if not add another back into the mix late in the draft, at least they'll bring a few in undrafted, maybe late in free agency. But I think you'd be silly to dismiss it. Can any need be more glaring than offensive line? They protect the franchise. I said it pretty much down the stretch, the second half of last season, that was the biggest issue for me. I mean, I know edge rusher is a need. I know linebacker is a need. Tight end long-term is a need. But to me, they have got to fix the interior and specifically the right guard position heading into 2019. It wrecked so much of what they were trying to do in the passing game last year. Now, obviously, they'll be running a different scheme, a different system, different blocking scheme, although it'll still be zone-based. But that talent level has got to come up at the right guard spot. And I think, as you state, they protect the franchise. And when you've made the significant investment that the Packers have made in Aaron Rodgers, it only makes sense to put premium talent in front of him. What do you think about the Packers making some trades to move up for Josh Allen or Bosa? I'd be absolutely shocked if they made a move for either one of those guys. I think those guys will be at the top of the draft, and it would take a significant amount of draft capital to jump up that high. I don't see that happening with Gutekunst, but you never know. If he views one of those guys as a generational player, an absolute difference maker, a franchise-defining type talent, maybe he makes that move. But only Brian Gutekunst can say and make that call. Duke Johnson will probably be used in the OBJ trade to the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, I know Jay Glazer wrote in his chat for The Athletic that he predicts that OBJ will be traded this offseason. He clarified it's not a report, but that's his prediction. And, Glazer's really plugged in, so it's hard not to give that a little bit of credence, right? I'll still be surprised if OBJ is moved, though. What is more important, a sack or QB pressure? Good question, Scott. I would say give me a strip sack. How about that? Pressure is important if you can get the quarterback off his spot. A lot of times that will lead to hurried throws and or, misfired throws and things end up as interceptions. But, you can have a turnover with a strip sack. So anything that results in a turnover is A-okay in my book and is probably preferable to anything else. Are there likely to be any solid free agent offensive line players available? We'll see. Sumale is a good example of somebody that could end up getting cut and on the street. We'll have to see on the lead up to March 13th what the landscape looks like. I think you have a much better chance of finding at least decent play at the guard position than you do at tackle. Although, last year the Packers went out and got Byron Bell, and that didn't work out so well. Why is Denver sinking so much money into quarterbacks? Because they can't evaluate them. I think that's pretty clear at this point. Other than other than John Elway going and saying, we got to go get Peyton Manning and closing that deal, he has been god-awful at evaluating quarterbacks time and time and time again, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through the draft. Elway has not hit on a quarterback other than Peyton Manning. And even then, Manning was at the tail end of his career. That's why. As you state in your comment there, they combined between what they're going to be paying Joe Flacco and the dead money cap hit they're going to take from Case Keenum, whether he's on the squad or not. They're going to be paying collectively at the quarterback spot more than the Packers are paying Aaron Rodgers. That's kind of crazy. If we have a conservative offseason this year as well? Are you counting last year as conservative? Does it tell us Murphy or Ball are actually in full control? No, it doesn't at all. I'm going to say this again. I'll probably say it 100,000 times this offseason. Brian Gutekunst has 100% control of the 53-man roster and all the moves that are made to construct it. Write it down. Mark it 0. Hi, Nagler. Do fan responses to Cole Madison bother you? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. They bother me. Am I bothered being asked about it all the time? I kind of made a joke out of it, but I get why people are interested. Does it bother me that people are interested? Not. I understand that it was a draft pick, and he did report there in the spring. I think part of the kind of mystery around Cole Madison, although it's not really a mystery, at this point, now that Michael Cohen has reported on it. I talked to Michael about it on Nagler's Never Right, my podcast, which is exclusively available on the Cheesehead TV Patreon. Insert plug here. But I think the mystery has been lifted, but leading up to that reporting, you had a kid who reported last spring and was there throughout the entire offseason. It was a great interview, was great with reporters, really engaging, was very talented. You could really see him possibly being in the mix to play at least down the line at guard in this offense, and then he just up and disappeared. So I get the interest. I mean, the Packers have a rabid fan base who, you talk to anybody who covers the Packers and then who either moves on to another spot or then comes from another spot. The interest in Green Bay for that team is so different. I mean, the fact that this show exists, right? That I do this stream, that's in and of itself a very unique thing for an NFL team that, I think Tom Pelissero put it best years and years ago when he left the Green Bay Press-Gazette to go cover the Vikings. He said, in Green Bay, you do a chat and people are talking about who's the fifth corner and, what kind of safety pressure are you going to be able to get on the zone blitz. He went to Minnesota and he got questions like, can Adrian Peterson go over 1,000 yards this year? And that's not to denigrate another fan base, et cetera, although it's the Vikings, so screw them. But it's just different in Green Bay. The level of interest and the level of every level is just different. It's just more intense, more scrutiny, more fishbowl. So the Cole Madison stuff, yeah, it got tiring after a while, being asked 100 million times a week, what's up, what's the latest on Cole Madison? That got a little tiring, but, it doesn't bother me, so to speak. I understand why people are interested. Let's head over to the old tweet machine, see what's going on. Starting off with, what are your thoughts on Shane Ray? Seems like he most likely one of the few pass rushers that will for sure hit the open market. I mentioned Shane Ray as a possibility in said podcast that I just mentioned with Michael Cohen last night on Nagler's Never Right, available exclusively on the Cheesehead TV Patreon page. Yeah, I think he's a definite possibility. I would, traditionally I'd say that's probably a wave 2 or 3 guy, but the way free agency works now, he's probably a wave 1 guy. You're probably going to have to overpay to get him. And that's why I say it's a remote possibility because I don't see Gutekunst going that route. But at some point, you got to put your money somewhere, right? And if Ray's a possibility, I think if he's out there for a week, 10 days, and not signed yet, I think that's that's definitely a phone call the Packers would make. I'd be surprised if they got in early on Shane Ray. Patrick asks, do you think either Brown or Bell have a chance to suit up for the Pack this year? No. I've wanted to go to a game, but when I'm about to pick which one the team looks like they aren't playing well, I would have cried if I spent a couple $100 and drove 7 hours to see last year's Arizona game. Swami Nags, are they going to be good enough this year? Whew. A lot to unpack there, Chase. Yeah, they'll be good enough. They'll be presentable. I think they'll have a new vigor, new lease on life, so to speak. New coach, new schemes, new stuff, etc. New talent. But hey, man, make the trip. It doesn't. If they lose, yeah, they might lose. It might be dispiriting, etc. But man, especially that was a game at Lambeau. It's at Lambeau. Man, I can tell you how many times I've seen the Packers lose, man. It doesn't matter. You're there. Make the trip. Make the trip. Hell, make the trip. Aaron Rodgers is playing. It's like seeing a rock star. I remember the first time I ever saw Brett Favre on the field in the flesh. It was like seeing John Lennon right in front of me. A freaking rock star, man. Make the time. Make the investment. Josh says, hi, Nags. I think the Cole Madison story needs to be clarified for the fans. I heard on a Packers podcast today, was it Nagler's Never Right, exclusively available on the Cheesehead TV Patreon page, that he's not coming back to football because one of his fellow football player friends committed suicide due in part to a football-related injury. Well, Josh, it was CTE is what the football-related injury was. And Michael did write about it extensively on The Athletic, which I encourage everyone to check out. And I did speak with Michael about it on Nagler's Never Right, exclusively available on the Cheesehead TV Patreon page. Check it out. I know running back is not a need really for the Packers. However, with Hunt going to the Browns, I could see the Browns cutting Duke Johnson. Thoughts on the Packers bringing him in for a three-headed running attack? Matthew, I think you're getting a little far out there, buddy. I'll be surprised if Duke Johnson is anywhere else other than Cleveland, at least for a little while, because don't forget, Hunt still has to most likely and probably will serve a suspension. And who knows how many games it is, but I don't see them moving on from Duke anytime soon. Maybe they do it later in the year. But, if he becomes available, yeah, I think it makes sense to at least make the phone call. But I think there'll be teams willing to pay him a decent amount of money. And I don't think the Packers need to get involved in a bidding war for a guy who will be in a rotation. Let's head back over to the live chat, see what's going on. What do you think about trying to sign C.J. Mosley? I love that idea. I think that's the kind of player they need on the inside, a real physical guy who can get downhill fast to pair with Blake Martinez. I love that idea. Will the Packers go for it? I have no idea. I spent thousands of dollars and drove 18 hours for the Arizona game and had the time of my life. Thank you, Daniel. I will become a Patreon when you update the website. If you become a Patreon, if you go to the Patreon page, you don't have to go to the website. Genius. The website's getting an update this offseason. One thing at a time. Good Lord. Bring back TJ Lang if cut. I'd be very, 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 very surprised. Outside of drafting Rodgers, what do you think Ted Thompson will be remembered most for? Hoisting a Lombardi trophy. We got pictures to prove it and everything. If Gutekunst sees a kicker he absolutely loves, do you see it? Oh, man, I hope it. I hope it. If only for the nuclear meltdown that will occur next to me when Corey Banke sees the pick. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a possibility. I doubt he drafts one. You never know. But again, is it possible they move on from Mason Crosby this offseason? I'd give it about a 37% chance of happening. But there's a chance. How would you feel about doubling down on a position this draft for the first two picks? Either two edge guys or two safeties. Is there more risk than reward there? I mean, yeah, you get immediate strength, you would hope, at that position. And they've done it in the later rounds, right? And I think it makes more sense in the later rounds because you're kind of throwing darts, right? Those early picks, they're a premium, and you want to hit on as many as you can. And if it's at a position like safety, maybe you can get both of those guys in the field sooner rather than later. I don't love the idea, but simply because you're always getting better or you're always getting worse at every single spot. And double down those first two picks, you're leaving the cupboard a little bit bare at other spots. Doesn't mean it can't happen, doesn't mean it won't happen, but it's not. I wouldn't go dead set into the draft. We got to do that. J.K. Scott has not proven he is anything in the NFL. I don't disagree. When we see teams start signing free agents, well, Nate, some of the guys who have been cut in this last week or so could start to get signed by other teams at any point. But more often than not, I think teams will wait until the start of free agency, until the legal tampering period. Guys with injuries, etc. I know Demaryius Thomas was waived with an injury. Those guys you'll probably wait until like week one, after week one, so teams don't have to guarantee their salaries. But as far as signing free agents, I would think the legal tampering period, which the official start of free agency is March 13th. Legal tampering starts 2 days before that. Better to go after an edge rush or a safety like Collins? Dan, I'm on the record saying I want Collins. I think that makes a world of sense. I think he would be a much better addition than anybody that's potentially going to be available via free agency. Although, again, it's so early. Let's wait and see what the edge class looks like in free agency first. But at first blush, my vote is for Collins. J.K. Scott is a weapon. He should be. He's got the tools to be. He's just got to put it all together. Could Jackson or Brown play safety? I don't see Brown. I think Jackson could. I don't know if they're going to make that jump after 1 year. He did have a rough outing, no doubt about it. I spoke on this a couple weeks ago. the number one thing he needs to learn to do is keep his hands off of guys, especially downfield. But I just don't see them making that jump 1 year in. But it's a possibility. I mean, maybe the specter of Demarius Randall being stuck at corner all those years and then being switched to safety and having some success there in Cleveland, maybe that changes their thinking a little bit, but I doubt it. Breland has a serious chip on his shoulder. Do you think the Packers sign him? I saw that, Patrick, his tweet yesterday in regards to the process of free agency last year with the Panthers, etc. Yeah, I think he's hungry, and I think that's good. It bodes well for his time going forward. Will it be in Green Bay? Obviously, a lot depends on the numbers. He's not a guy I would break the bank for. We don't know what he and his representatives want in terms of a contract. If it's cap-friendly, team-friendly, etc., or at least workable within the cap, I think, yeah, definitely bring him back. But I would not overpay to make sure that Breland is back. I think he's a fine corner. I think he's got talent. But they've invested pretty heavily in the position in the draft, and you got to get those guys on the field. Is Taylor the answer at left guard? Interesting question, Christopher. I think it's very clear he had a down year in 2018. The piece that Packers.com, now it is Packers.com, so you have to take it with a grain of salt, but the job Wes did painting what a struggle it was for him coming off the injury in camp. And I had a couple people in the building talk about that, how it was affecting him. That puts it in a certain light. And I don't think there's any question he wasn't up to the level of play that we had seen previous and basically the level of play that got him the contract extension. I think I'm more than happy going into 2019 with Taylor at left guard. You know, with the idea being he's going to be back to 100% health and is able to get back to the level of play we saw previously. I mean, don't forget, we saw that with Corey Linsley. Don't forget, 2 years ago, he had a down year, and then he bounced back very, very well. And I think Taylor could follow the same path. I think he's got the talent to play the position. He's played at a high level. They've been very productive with him in there at times. I don't think left guard is a concern. I think right guard is the issue. Does Aaron Rodgers not like you? Fantastic question. You'd have to ask Aaron. I don't know. Is it possible to sign both Collins and Mosley? I know it most probably won't happen. I think it's possible. I think it's unlikely. But yeah, I think it's possible. They'll have room. Tony Brown is the best cornerback we have. Bold, hot takes. Woo! Smoking. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's got a lot of potential. He could prove out to be a really special guy, a special find, so to speak. But better than Jair Alexander and Kevin King? Feels early to be making that kind of assertion. 30th overall pick for Antonio Brown. Would you do it? No, I would not. And I doubt the Packers would, given his contract. Now, if Antonio Brown turns around and says, hey, the only place I want to play is Green Bay, and I am more than willing to, give them a major discount on my contract, then yeah, maybe. Then I think about it. But his current numbers, given what you've paid Rodgers, and the many needs you have on this roster, no, I wouldn't. Did they keep the strength and conditioning coaches? Oh, I've heard no word. So far, it sure looks like Lovat and his crew will be returning. But that is definitely something we will be asking at the Combine in 2 weeks. What would the Texans want for Clowney? Mike, if they put the franchise tag on him, I highly doubt they're going to be trading him. But what would they want? A king's ransom, probably. Only if Kevin King could stay healthy. Hey, we'll see. AB would be cheaper than Tay if the Packers traded for him. Okay. Yes, and then there'd be two guys that you're paying a significant amount of money while also paying your franchise quarterback $26.5 million, and you still have a ton of other needs. it all kind of fits like a puzzle. And if you allocate all these resources to one position, yes, you can throw the ball around the yard. Great. But you remember the 15-1 year when they got to the playoffs? And then all of a sudden throwing it all over the yard just couldn't get them anywhere? I'd like to have a well-balanced team just once. Just remember 2010 when they had a top 10 defense? Let's do that again. That's just me. I'm crazy. Nags, is this a make or break year for Kevin King? It's getting close, right? Sure feels like it. He's got to stay on the field. He's got to help him, got to produce. And the thing is they're a much better defense. The tape shows you that. The numbers show you that. They are a much better defense when he's on the field. But he's got to stay on the field. And yeah, if he doesn't this year, then you start making plans. And then it's, okay, he's got one more year on his rookie deal, and then it's probably time to bid him adieu. Problem is, of course, then he goes off like Casey Hayward and goes balls out in San Diego, and everyone's like, why'd they let him walk? Can't win. Have you thought about doing a stream about the proper preparation of the old-fashioned? I have not, but we will get Corey Banke on that. Maybe there'll be a specific Patreon level that you can contribute to get Corey Banke to do a old-fashioned stream. In fact, I see him walking around back there. I'll have to get him to come in here. We were well-balanced the past couple years, and we sucked at everything. Whew, did we watch different teams. What's it like in your world? They had a top 10 defense the last 2 years? Amazing. Where was I? Oh my God, I was in the studio watching the games, not watching a top 10 defense. So I don't know what you were watching, what I was watching, but man, that sounds amazing. Do the Packers keep a fullback on the roster this season? Great question. I am very interested to see how Matt LaFleur goes about, working with Brian Gutekunst and how he prioritizes the position, because the narrative obviously is that the fullback is going the way of the dodo, is no longer needed, no longer necessary. But man, I like me a big fullback in some of those running schemes. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to make a note to ask LaFleur his feelings on the fullback position when we see him in 2 weeks. Could Kaiser be a wide receiver? All right. Now it's time to go. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Make sure you check out Naglers Never Right, my podcast, exclusively available at the Cheesehead TV Patreon page. Seriously, though, thanks so much for joining me, for chatting, for checking out the YouTube page. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, share it. Facebook, Instagram, we're everywhere. YouTube. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for doing everything you can to support Cheesehead TV in whatever fashion you do. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great night.